Nightline Mystery Diagnosis will continue. ABC Election Night with George Stephanopoulos. Hooked on Phonics. Call 1-800-ABCDEFG. Silence your cell phones. No, that one's real, guys. Please, make sure you silence your cell phones. My name is Randy Thomas, and as you've just heard, I am a voiceover artist, and those are some of the things I have said before. And here are a few more. The National Football League welcomes you to the Pepsi Zero Sugar Super Bowl 51 halftime show. Entertainment Tonight, the most watched entertainment news magazine in the world. Live from the Dolby Theater at Hollywood and Highland, it's the 91st Academy Awards. And now, ladies and gentlemen, this year's Kennedy Center honorees. Welcome back to the American Theater Wing's 73rd Annual Tony Awards. From the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, it's the 2019 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Tonight, their stories of survival. This special edition of Nightline, the Thailand Miracle Boys. We'll be right back. Thank you. I sound pretty confident there, don't you think? It wasn't always that way. Lifting my voice wasn't easy, and being heard was even harder. The truth is, my journey to those stages and this one here today has been a long and winding road. I grew up in a pretty innocent time, but a not so innocent home. The Brady Bunch, we were not. In fact, the only thing my mom and Carol Brady had in common is that they would both make an appearance in our home for about 30 minutes once a week. And my dad, he would have been just like Mike Brady if Mike Brady drank a lot. My awesome brothers and I were kind of nomad-like, moving around as kids, city to city, state to state, different homes, same disappointment. But then, a saving grace, I found something that would take me out of my reality, if only for a few hours, and it excited me more than anything ever had. No, not boys. That would come later. It was the radio, my turquoise blue transistor radio. It opened up for me an incredible life. I mean, the DJs were all men, but to this lost little girl, they were almost godlike. So, one night, well, I'm living on Miami Beach with my grandparents, and I'm listening to the radio, and DJ Rick Shaw, my favorite, announced that the Junior Miss Orange Bowl pageant was looking for contestants. I went, oh my gosh, do I even dare? The next day, all the kids were talking about it, and I overheard the popular girls saying they were going to enter our local qualifying pageant for Little Miss Miami Beach. My heart sank. I can't compete with those girls. So I decided, DJ Rickshaw, I'm signing off. Forget it. But then I found out that the little town of Surfside also had a qualifying pageant. So on a Friday night, I stepped upon the stage of the Surfside Community Center in a borrowed blue dress, 3 sizes too big, doing my best to tame my unmanageable curls. I stepped on the stage completely terrified, feeling out of my element, but knowing there was no turning back now. For a while, things weren't going so good. I was like self-conscious and watching my dream of the big time slowly slipping away. But then it was time for the girls to be interviewed. When it was my turn, I stepped up to the table, I reached into a giant glass bowl and pulled out a question. I glanced at it as I handed it to the judge. And as he read it aloud to the audience, something remarkable happened. I felt a sense of calm. It was as though a switch had gone off in my head. I mean, it had been there all the time, even through the different moves with my family. I had the switch, I just didn't know how to use it. But right now, it was definitely on. The question, what is the most inspiring book you've ever read? All of a sudden, I'm talking about Helen Keller. She was born deaf and blind, and she was mistreated by some, ignored by others, until a really kind teacher saw that Helen was more, and she opened up for her an escape hatch, and Helen went through it. Against all odds, Helen became one of our country's most admired and powerful voices. And wouldn't you know it, that night, they crowned me Little Miss Surfside. As I stood there that night, I realized two things. First of all, my pageant days were numbered. I just didn't have the hair for it. But two, that the switch had come on. And I felt that I knew if I used my voice authentically, powerfully, and wisely, that I would be heard. So, cut to 5 years later, I'm living in Detroit, Michigan with my mom, enrolled in junior college, mostly because I haven't got a clue what I want to do with my life. So one day, I'm sitting in the student commons, and I hear a radio, music playing. I found out it was the campus radio station, and suddenly, the switch began to twitch. I ran as fast as my legs could carry me to the radio station door, knocked on it, and announced to the news director when he opened it, "I want to be a DJ. I want to be on the air." To which he replied, "We don't have girls here." Okay, but how do I get on the air? He said, "Go ask the FCC," and shut the door. And I did. I was back 2 weeks later with my commercial radio broadcast license from the FCC. I got on the air and eventually became one of the first women on the radio in the city of Detroit. For the next 20 years, I enjoyed my life as a DJ, from Detroit to New York, Miami, and Los Angeles. So one morning, I get off my morning shift on the air, and I'm handed a message, and it's from the producers of the Academy Awards. Now, let me get this straight. That was not the kind of message I was used to getting. They were auditioning for the announcer of the Oscars, and did I want to audition? Okay. As I stepped into the gleaming offices, I felt a little bit like that 13-year-old girl on the Surfside Community Center stage, little out of my element, but knowing it was too late to turn back now. The producer handed me some copy, and he said, "Read it like an Oscar announcer." And suddenly I'm talking. "Live from Los Angeles, it's the Academy Awards." And they're smiling. I stop talking, and they're still smiling. And wouldn't you know it, they made me the first woman in history to announce the Oscars. And I could hear my grandmother that night saying, "Kid, you know, you got some chutzpah." So today, I am so grateful for the life that I couldn't even have fathomed as a kid. But I didn't get here alone, far from it. I was really blessed to be mentored by my dear friend, the late, great Don LaFontaine. He was the movie trailer guy. He coined the phrase, "in a world." So, in a world where a young girl can find hope in a transistor radio, answers in giant glass bowls, and often with chutzpah, the only thing going for her, that little girl is the woman standing before you today. And I would just like to say that if any of you ever encounter in your life someone who says with their words or actions, "We don't have girls here," just think of it as an invitation. Thank you.